Check. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Brian. We have round 22, the penultimate race of the SRL Season 9. And it's one of the most beloved tracks on the calendar, Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix today. As we get into a short qualifying session before a 50% race, we will get as much information up here as we're able, and we'll get on track. Well, it is round 22 of 23. Most of the point standings already wrapped up. You see in this race today both Jenson Randall and Alexei Koivuniemi together the Constructors' Championship in the bag for Aston Martin. Jenson Randall, the Drivers' Champion, already for him. Jenson Randall on some last to first races over the last few rounds and with quite a bit of success. I believe today he may intend to qualify, but we'll see. We'll go on board with Jenson Randall as he comes across the first two turns, turns 1 and 2, into the famous S's here at Suzuka. So they're keeping it in third, trying to warm up the brakes and the tires. I think Jenson going to go for a full-out qualifying session. He had mentioned that Suzuka would be one where he did intend to qualify as he comes around Dunlop and into the Degner curves here. Coming around the second Degner, of course, if you watched the F1 race a few weeks ago, Degner 2 always a little bit hairy and around the hairpin. To get onto this nice long sweeping turn 12 that will lead into Spoon, perhaps one of the most famous sections of track on one of the most famous circuits on the calendar right here. The Spoon curve, a little bit of a double apex there. You see in, out, back in, and then a nice long straight here that'll come up on 130R. In a Formula car, easy flat out. Jenson getting a little bit of grass there on the front right, as you can see. He'll come up on Casio, and we'll see what he can do for his first qualifying time here. Looking at times around 126, I imagine. If anyone's going to break into the 125 barrier, it'll be this man, Jenson Randall. Track Evolution in play. So times will only get faster. The Alpine behind him, I believe that is Max Mulder? No, Tim Ventink. Jenson comes through the S's, likely keeping it in 6th gear here. No reason to downshift or upshift. Will come out through Dunlop. And you can really send it here on the first Degner. Maybe a slight lift and downshift. Nice, and carrying a lot of speed there was Jenson. Maximizing track. And through the hairpin. Potential overtaking spot here today. And then a nice and easy until Spoon. The Aston of Alexei Koivuniemi on the track in front of him, just getting through Spoon now. Alexei should be well clear of Jenson for the rest of this lap. Looks like a little bit of wheel spin there coming out of Spoon too. And you can ignore the purple sectors, not unusual for Jenson Randall, but he is the first to put a time on the table here through Casio. Really hopping that curb on the way in, not so much on the way out. Coming around, keep it nice and close, shortest distance, a 126.7. So not a bad first lap for Jenson Randall. Time still to find. I'm sure we go with his closest rival, Nicola Falzaresi. Nico, the young Italian driver in the Sauber. And the track map indicating a little bit of action going on in the S's, I think. A lot of drivers trying to find their footing, trying to give space, and it looks like perhaps an invalidation here for Nicolo Falzaresi coming around Spoon. Hard to say. He's still driving like this lap will count, but I guess we'll see if he comes into the pit lane, and he does. Alexei Koivuniemi, a great race last week in Miami. Unfortunately, a bit of contact with Sandro Dulis near the finale compromised his race. And Sandro, as he's testing the setup here, you see the green inters on the car. Koivuniemi, still a purple sector, even on the inters, but this is a time that we will ignore. He'll go into the pit lane. And out of retirement for one last score, Max Mulder, Dutch driver, winner of the 1v1 around the new year at Silverstone. Comes around Casio, a 1:28.2 for Max Mulder. Good enough for P2 currently. We'll keep an eye on the times, especially from the aforementioned Nicolo Falzaresi, Alexei Koivuniemi, Sandro Dulis, a very solid season. A bunch of finishes in the top 5. Have been pretty far up the driver's standings. Expecting a good time from him and David Rod, the Romanian in the Red Bull. Not sure what Jensen Randall's up to, but he'll know better than me. And welcome back to an SRL race. This is Enrique Perez, Spanish driver, as he goes off into the gravel coming around Casio. Looks like a late decision to pit for him. Robin Hertzstadhagen on the outlap. He's coming around Casio now. Excuse me, Spoon. We'll see what the McLaren driver can do. The lone McLaren on track today, no Freya Belay. A little surprised. I would have thought Freya Belay, seeing another McLaren driver get his maiden win recently. I expected Belay would have liked his chances at Suzuka. As Hertzstadhagen comes around Casio Triangle, he'll be the only one on a timed lap as he crosses start-finish here. You see, with Jensen Randall parking in an unsafe location, Sandro Dulis now on pole, the 1:27.5. The first lap out there on a cold surface by Jensen Randall was about 8/10 faster, but it will be another last to first attempt for Jensen Randall. As Hertzstadhagen around Dunlop into Degner here. Nice purple sector through the S's. And you see a little less aggressive for Hertzstadhagen through Degner than we saw with Jensen Randall. But I don't blame Hertzstadhagen. Get a time on the table, plenty of opportunities to improve. And I have a feeling if anyone's race is going to be compromised, it will be through the Degner turns. Around Spoon onto a nice long straight here coming into 130R. Nice on board with Hertzstadhagen. Really drive home. This is a flat out 130R in a Formula car. Through Casio he comes. We'll see where Hertzstadhagen is going to wind up on the table. It's going to be, I think, ahead of Dion Stahl, but still some work to do for Robin Hertzstadhagen. 1:29.9. Mercedes driver Ivan Brito will go into the pit lane. His teammate back after an absence, uncharacteristic absence in the last round, Vincenzo Torre. As he puts a purple sector up on the track map. Only Casio to go for him. Looks like it'll be a good time for Vincenzo Torre, improving throughout the year, I have to say. A 1:27.7. Good enough for P3 currently, as David Rod also your new pole position, 1:27.3. Great time for Vincenzo Torre. Great time for David Rod. Koivuniemi. We'll see where he ends up coming through the hairpin. He knows his teammate's going to start in the back. It usually only takes Jensen about 7 or 8 laps before he finds his way to the front. Around Spoon for the Finnish driver. Nicolo Falzaresi, Ivan Brito, and Enrique Perez still to put a time on the table. Dion Stahl, that may have been a setup check himself with the 1:35. Around Casio for Koivuniemi. Not wanting to disrupt the car through Casio, keeps it nice and tidy. A 1:28.1. So I'm go a little bit wider coming around Casio than other drivers who really hug that wall, but a good time for Koivuniemi. And more time still to improve as track improves. And Nicolo Falzaresi besting David Rod by about half a second here, 1:27.3. Jensen Randall still the only 1:26 on the board. Of course, you see he's disqualified there at the bottom of the timing table for parking it on the entry to pit lane. Oh, and losing it is Ivan Brito on the outlap. So still no time put up for Ivan Brito. I think hopefully he'll have time to clean the tires. He's only in the S's on the outlap. But some wiggles early on from the Portuguese driver. Meanwhile, the lone Haas is Enrique Perez. Looks like a lap invalidated. But after some really strong Haas drivers earlier in the year, Logan Orr and Noah Smith, today it'll be just Enrique Perez, reserve driver. 4 drivers have broken into 1:27. Nicolo Falzaresi, David Rod, Sandro Dulis, and Vincenzo Torre. Again, what a qualifying this would be for Vincenzo Torre to start in the second row. Max Mulder just a shade north of 1:28 as Sandro Dulis with a big time improvement, 1:27.288 to put himself on pole. Lots of traffic here for Ivan Brito to deal with. The Alpine making way. Brito himself allowing the Red Bull to go through. We'll see what Brito can do here. Coming across start. No, he's going to get a new set of softs. So I suppose it makes sense. I could see it going either way. Time is starting to become a factor, but Brito is now only going to have one chance to put up a time, along with Enrique Perez. As you see a little wiggle there coming out of the hairpin for Sandro Dulis. Just a cool down lap for him. George Wilkes, the 5th driver to break into 1:27. Looks like a cool down lap for George Wilkes as well. Red Bull looking strong. No Nick Van Gelder today in the Red Bull after the heroics in the rain in Miami last week. The driver of the day for both me and Lance then. And speaking of drivers of the day, if you'd like to vote for the driver of the day after today's race, the SRL_F1 Instagram will give you the opportunity. Check around with some drivers we haven't seen much of today. Noah Ralzo Abia in the Sauber here, currently in P10 with the 1:28.493. See, comes around the hairpin. Here's his teammate Nicolo Falzaresi just behind him on an outlap. So Nico's going to be, I think, looking for some space in front and behind him. Want it nice and clear as Ralzo Abia comes around Spoon looking to improve on the 128.493. He's going to finish Sector 2 here. Not much of an improvement. And most of the time to be gained at that point going to be through the S's and through the hairpin. Does find another quarter second in Sector 3, so Cassio improvements there for Alzo Abia. He moves up with a quarter second improvement. Quite a few spaces into P8. We saw his teammate behind him, Nicolo Falzaresi, in the other Sauber. Just a couple hundredths separating him from pole position. We'll see what Nico can do. Always fans in the chat for Nico. Traffic in front. We just saw his teammate Alzo Abia finish his lap. We'll see if his teammate wants to give him a bit of a tow. Not that Nico is the sort of driver who needs it. Coming into Spoon here. The Ferrari allowing space for Falzaresi. You know, it looks like Enrique Perez really driving hard on his in-lap. I think hoping he'll get around. He's not going to be able to. A nice tow here for his teammate through 130R. We'll see what Falzaresi can do. Going to keep it nice and close to the wall here. It's going to be a 126, I think. Oh, just missed it. 127.092. Good improvement for Nico. That is provisional pole. Sandro De Luis is on an outlap. Meanwhile, David Rod has improved by a 10th. After Sector 1 through Sector 2, a 10th and a half. So he'll need a little bit more time if he would like to find his own pole position here. But there have been improvements in Sector 3 for just about everybody. 127.166. Currently first row for David Rod. Well done for him. Sandro De Luis. A nice improvement through Sector 1 for himself. If he maintains that improvement, he'll be into P2 at David Rod's. Great disappointment, I'm sure, but we'll see. After the hairpin, we saw Sandro with a little bit of wheel spin coming out of the hairpin last time we followed him. Around Spoon, a bit of traffic. Looks like the Alpine allowing him to go through. And now, his teammate in front of him. That's Dion Stahl. Dion Stahl also on a timing lap, I think. Sandro losing a little bit of time through Sector 2, though. We'll come around Cassio. I don't know if it's going to be an improvement, although Sector 3 has, again, seen improvements for most drivers. 127.356, so consistency, but no improvement for Sandro De Luis. Through the S's, the Finnish driver, Aleksi Koivuniemi. As he finishes Sector 1, we'll get a good idea of what his lap looks like. I don't think that's going to do it. You see him slowing down coming out of Degner, so Koivuniemi, it looks like, is going to be solid at 127.433. George Wilkes in the Red Bull. Coming around 130R. Will move around his teammate David Rod through Cassio. Will George Wilkes improve a little bit of sideways, goes into the pit lane. Tim Bentinck on a cool-down lap. Even Brito on a cool-down lap, so it appears pole position, it's going to be Nicolo Falzaresi. David Rod in the Red Bull, completing the first row. Sandro De Luis, Aleksi Koivuniemi in the second row. George Wilkes, Vincenzo Torre with what might be his best qualifying session of this season. Vincenzo Torre in P6. Juan Rivas, one of the many Spaniards in today's race, P7. Max Mulder out of retirement with his teammate Tim Bentinck right behind him in P8 and P9. Noah Razo Abia completing the top 10 to start. Even Brito, Jesper Limpinen, Dion Stahl, Robin Hertzstadhagen, and without times on the table, that's Enrique Perez and Jensen Randall starting at the back of the grid. The qualifying session will conclude here shortly, and we'll get to a 50% race at Suzuka. Well, that does it for qualifying. We'll get into the race again at 50% race length here at Suzuka, 3.6 miles. You've already seen a lot of what the track has to offer. The S's through Sector 1, a nice hairpin that gets our drivers through Sector 2. Leads into Spoon Curve, and then Sector 3, mostly just going to be 130R and the Casio Triangle. Jensen Randall in the Aston Martin going to be starting at the back of the grid. He is your driver champion for Season 9 of SRL. Second place in the Drivers' Championship in the Sauber, that's Nicolo Falzaresi. And he can wrap up second position in the Drivers' Championship today. He'll just need to be within 5 points of Finnish driver Aleksi Koivuniemi. And second place will be his. Elsewhere on the driver's standings, Sandro Delis a good chance to move into P4 over Logan Oren. And Tim Bentinck with Noah Smith and Freya Belay not driving today, an opportunity to sneak into P6. And what a surprise to see all those different colors for the tire compounds. A nice mix for the race today. Seems to be about an even split between hard compound, medium, and soft. Jensen Randall, no surprise, going with the hard compound starting in the back. He's going to want a long stint. Some soft runners in the middle. Juan Rivas, Max Mulder, Noah Razo Abia, Jesper Limpinen, Enrique Perez. The Spaniards liking the red-rimmed tires. And then somewhere in the middle, David Rod, Sandro Delis, Vincenzo Torre, Tim Bentinck, Dion Stahl, Robin Hertzstadhagen, your medium runners. You see what the game would consider possible tire strategies. But given that it's only showing medium and hard, there's more to it than that with 5 soft runners at the start of this race. A little bit overcast here at Suzuka. We saw rain play a significant role for the first time at the last round in Miami. And we'll see what happens if there's rain today. At least they're really getting the tires up to temperature. As he comes around Casio Triangle, he will get in position. Now Nico starting to warm the tires as our drivers complete the formation lap, get back into their positions. We'll keep an eye on David Rod on the medium compound. Turn 1, you can go pretty deep before you need to brake. Into turn 2, he's going to have a grip advantage as an Alpine goes Whew. Well, a little bit of excitement already. I believe it's going to be Max Mulder on the inside part of the row. But we'll go on board Nicolo Falzaresi for the start of this race. The lights will count us down. The revs are up, and we are off for the Japanese Grand Prix round 22 of Season 9 of SRL. Nico, a good enough start to maintain his position, but David Rod going to have the inside corner here for both turns 1 and turns 2. And then in the S's, we got to be very careful. This is not an overtaking opportunity, as you see everyone start to maintain the line. It looks like Juan Rivas went very wide there going into the S's. He had the outside part. The car is still drivable, but Juan Rivas losing a lot of time there. We'll come into Degner, and this is where I'm a little bit worried. We'll follow Sandro Dulis, a slight lift and a downshift here through Degner 1. Everyone gets through that one safely, and now into the hairpin. Soft runners near the back. Jensen Randall already up into P10. You see him there side by side with Enrique Perez. Nicolo Falzaresi, David Rod starting to really pull away from everyone else. Sandro Dulis kind of on an island by himself. Meanwhile, Koivuniemi, Wilkes, Torre, and Ventink here out of Spoon. A nice little line here and a pack behind them. That's Ventink, Brito, Randall, Perez. Ducasio Triangle, a relatively uneventful lap 1. Juan Rivas certainly having the worst of it as he's down in P16. David Rod and Nicolo Falzaresi really starting to pull away from P3. Sandro Dulis. Also, Abia dives into the pits, must have been damaged himself. So a rough start for our Spanish drivers. Dulis starting to see the Red Bull in front of him really start to pull away here. Vincenzo Torre currently running P6. Sees George Wilkes in front of him coming through Degner here. The Alpine of Tim Ventink a little bit narrow coming out, but still lots of traffic. I don't think he's going to lose much position. He does have Jensen Randall behind him. So Jensen Randall coming out of Spoon, going to have a nice opportunity, if he would like it, to at least have a look. No DRS at this moment. It is only lap 2. We are on the regulations from the previous F1 season. So we wait till lap 3 for DRS. Coming through Casio, you see Dulis, Koivuniemi, Wilkes, Torre, who we're following with, and Ventink behind him. And David Rod, the current fastest lap. He and Falzaresi now a second and a half ahead of Sandro Dulis. So not sure what might be happening with Dulis compared to David Rod in front of him. But Nico and Rod certainly appreciating that Sandro's giving them a little bit of space here. DRS is enabled. Only one DRS zone, but a nice long straight out of Spoon. We'll see if anyone is close enough to take a look with slipstream effect. Coming into the hairpin here. Things starting to settle. As the Alpine of Tim Ventink and Jensen Randall getting close there coming out of the hairpin. Through Spoon. What kind of exit will Jensen Randall get here? Will he take a look? And he is going to go inside through 130R. Nice and easy, even without DRS. There is a DRS detection point through Casio. Jensen Randall close enough to Vincenzo Torre. that he'll get it here through the straight coming into turn 1. So Jenson Randall P7 after 3 laps. Your race leader, Nicolo Falzaresi, on the hard compound, doing well. Current tire disadvantage to David Rod. As the laps increase here, that will turn into a tire advantage, being on the harder compounds through the Degner turns. Great start for Nico. Closest rivals behind him on the medium compound, so he's going to want to maintain as much as he can. Meanwhile, for Sandro Dulis, 1.8 seconds to David Rod. Starting to lose him on these camera angles. You see him just appearing there in the background. On the mediums himself, he was hoping for a better start, I think. Jenson Randall in at P6. Found his way around Vincenzo Torre. George Wilkes, the next one in line. George Wilkes finding himself sandwiched between the teammates, Koivuniemi and Jenson Randall. Wilkes able to get the overtake done on Koivuniemi. That's going to be good for him. If he's got the pace, he doesn't want to be stuck behind Koivuniemi while Jenson Randall is making his way through the grid. And at the top of the grid, while we checked in with Jenson Randall, it's the Red Bull of David Rod now in the lead. Medium compound coming around Dunlop here. So could be Falzaresi understanding the tire differences, content with David Rod taking the lead. Maybe they can work together. They will need to do something if they want to stop Jenson Randall from winning yet another race. Around that nice sweeping turn into Spoon. So race leader remaining in David Rod in the Red Bull. Portuguese driver in the Mercedes, Ivan Brito here. He's got in front of him Jesper Limpinen and the AlphaTauri. Juan Rivas just behind him. Nice little recovery from Juan Rivas. Found himself at the back of the pack after going off track in the S's in the first lap. Back at the top, it appears Nicolo Falzaresi able to get the overtake done on the DRS straights going into turn 1. As they come through the S's, Dulis still about a second and a half behind those two in P1 and P2. But Dulis maintaining his position. Just head down, putting in the times. George Wilkes in the Red Bull behind him. Jenson Randall has gotten around his teammate Alexei Koivuniemi. Jenson Randall in P5. Koivuniemi, Vincenzo Torre, Tim Ventink behind Jenson Randall, all who've been passed by Jenson just in the last couple laps here. Also Abia with a penalty for track limits, I imagine. Through Casio. We'll see if George Wilkes wants to make the move on Sandro. He's going to have DRS. You can be really brave coming into turn 1 here. And it almost seemed like the wing of George Wilkes, we didn't see it open. I know sometimes the game does not always make it visually apparent. that DRS was engaged, but George Wilkes not really able to gain any time. Would have had DRS. Now he's got Jensen Randall on the diffuser behind him. As they come around Dugner 2 here. Position the car just right for the hairpin, and we'll see as we come around the long sweeping turn 12 into Spoon what these three are going to do on that straight before 130R. Duleese on the mediums, the two drivers immediately behind him running the hard compound. They get through Spoon. Does George Wilkes have it on the exit? I'm not sure. He might be waiting for DRS. He doesn't want to go for a move and allow Jensen Randall to find a way in. Jensen going side by side with George Wilkes. He's going to get it through Casio. Another overtake for Jensen Randall, and he's going to have DRS. So well done for Jensen Randall. Sandro Duleese also with DRS. So well done for Sandro Duleese to decrease the gap to Nicolo Falzaresi and David Rod in front of him to regain DRS. That might be the first time Sandro Duleese has had DRS in this race. Up to 1.8 seconds behind the two drivers in front of him at one point. Jensen Randall P4. Race leader David Rod about 1.2 seconds in front of him. George Wilkes will get a track limits warning. I believe that was Degner 1 that he found it. Jensen Randall goes wide on the hairpin. Trying to send it around the outside, I think, to get around Sandro. Losing a little bit of time as a result. They come out of Spoon, 130R again. So Jensen made the move coming into Casio on the last lap to gain some positions. This time he'll keep it nice and neat. He knows he's going to have DRS. So will Sandro Duleese. Koivuniemi going to be out of DRS range, so this top five might be pulling away here. Jensen really getting the slipstream. Is he going to try and send it around the outside? He will. Sandro will allow that to happen. Jensen Randall up into P3. So if you're David Rod and Nicolo Falzaresi, you now see that green behind you. You're going to want to be careful as the Alpine of Max Mulder. See the ghosted even Brito going to the pit lane. So perhaps something between those two happening. And a safety car. Is it also Abia? I'm not sure. All the cars appear to be drivable. Nothing that I see as an obvious need for a safety car. But as I frequently mention, I kind of like the soft runners over the last few rounds because there's usually a safety car in around laps 9 or 10 on these races. So we'll check with Perez, Rivas, and Limpinen on the softs. They'll get a nice reduced pit stop and potentially could go the rest of the race on a harder medium compound. Meanwhile, your hard runners like the man we're watching right now, Nicolo Falzaresi, he's already run on the hard, so if he's going to switch, it'll have to be something softer and maybe not able to go the rest of the way. And it looks like the timing window is just about perfect, so just maybe everyone's going to pit. We'll see if there's a double stack with Jensen Randall. I shouldn't think so. So everyone leaving in the order they came in. Nicolo Falzaresi, David Rod, Jensen Randall. And I imagine every driver on the grid will pit. Here they all come. And if Jensen Randall was already scary on the hard compound, he's coming out on the medium. So he'll only have more pace. But 17 laps is pushing it at Suzuka on the medium compound. If perhaps David Rod can smartly manage his tires, potentially could make this a one stop, but I don't think he's going to. I think the time loss might be too much. He's found himself between the two paciest drivers on the grid. No more soft compounds. An unfortunate thing for Raza Abia, Brito, and Mulder, who had all pitted the lap immediately before the safety car. And as the standings are now, Nicolo Falzaresi would quite easily lock himself into P2 for the Drivers' Championship. Dulis with a P4 finish, doing pretty well with himself. David Rod has not had too many races with SRL, but each one he has been a contender for a podium. So nothing new for him today. Finding himself in P2 in the Red Bull. At least one more lap of the safety car. You see the Sauber of Razo Abia coming around Spoon into 130R. Should be able to catch back up with the Q here by the time this lap is over. Check some more details, including penalties. You see just 3 seconds. Wilkes, Herstadhagen, Brito, Razo Abia. 13 positions gained for Jensen Randall. Enrique Perez also didn't put in a qualifying time, finding himself in P8, so well done to him. And you see there at the bottom, Rivas, Mulder, Brito, Razo Abia all running into some sort of trouble on the track. That is the reason they find themselves with quite a few positions lost since the start. Also, Abia has found his way back up to the queue as we come around the hairpin. I imagine the safety car will be in this lap. Nicolo Falzaresi will restart us once the time comes. Should be back to full speed driving for lap 2. Go on board here with Nico, see what the skies look like. Still a little cloudy, but I don't think any rain in those clouds. See Nico allowing the safety car quite a bit of space in front of him, knowing it'll be in. He's going to warm the tires up as much as he can. And the restart will be on him. So big advantage here with the Casio triangle. Falzaresi will restart us here. So many drivers still in the Casio triangle. But a great restart for Jensen Randall, who is already side by side with David Rod. Both of them right on the rear wing of Nicolo Falzaresi. Rod and Jensen Randall side by side through turn 1. Jensen Randall going to get the overtake done. So a good restart for Jensen Randall. He had the tire advantage, had the grip advantage, and is always one of the best reaction times on a safety car restart. It's rare he's not the one restarting himself through Dunlop. We'll check a little bit farther back in the grid as Nico and Jensen start to make time again. Sandro Dulis 7/10 behind David Rod in P3, so must be the first sector that Sandro's losing a bit of time here, or he's just managing his ERS differently than those in front of him. Come around Spoon here, and we'll see how the drivers feel coming into 130R. We've seen a few take some looks here coming out of Spoon. Falzaresi 6/10 up on Jensen Randall now in the race lead. But this is where the action is. The Aston Martin Alexei Koivuniemi very close to George Wilkes, who's very close to Sandro Dulis. Will someone be brave here coming into Casio? Not this lap. No DRS yet on the safety car restart. Nicolo Falzaresi a 131. Now will George Wilkes take a look. Sandro Dulis defensive coming into turns 1 and 2, which allows George Wilkes the opportunity to throw it around the outside. Wilkes just right on the tail of Sandro Dulis. Meanwhile, David Rod in front of Dulis, now 1.3 seconds ahead. And Koivuniemi went off track, I believe, on the start-finish straight. It had been a battle with these two and Tim, and Koivuniemi finding himself at the back of the grid. So now quite a bit of space you see between Wilkes and Enrique Perez, who again started P15 up into P6 now. So unfortunate for Koivuniemi. He'll be hoping for another safety car, I'm sure, to make up this ground. We'll check with Koivuniemi, see if there's any apparent damage. Looks like both end plates on. I don't see any punctures, but unfortunate for him. Back at the top, George Wilkes still right behind Sandro Dulis. Vincenzo Torre getting the overtake done on Enrique Perez. So Torre continuing a good race day after a good qualifying session up into P6, back where he started. DRS is enabled yet again. Jensen Randall, the fastest lap, 130 even. George Wilkes looking at Sandro Dulis. Dulis squeezing him, but very late on the brakes there is George Wilkes. You can really send it in turn 1 and turn 2. He's going to get the overtake done on Dulis. 2.2 seconds between Wilkes and his teammate, David Rod, both in the Red Bulls. David Rod starting to lose time to those in front of him, out of DRS range currently, but still most of the lap to go. Through Degner for these three coming up on the hairpin. Near the back of the grid, it is Noah Razo Abia looking at Even Brito here, coming around the hairpin. And he'll get a bit of traction on the exit, but not enough coming around turn 12 into Spoon. We'll see if Razo Abia wants to make a move here. Going into 130R, we've seen a few drivers take a look. Slipstream in effect, but we'll go up to the front because Jensen Randall's going to have DRS coming out of Casio here and may be able to take the race lead over Nicolo Falzaresi. The wing open, should be an easy overtake for Jensen Randall. Slips back in front around turn 1 and turn 2. Jensen Randall, race leader. We're past the halfway point, lap 15 of 27. And these two continuing the trend of finding their way, really increasing the gap to P3. Even Brito found himself the wrong way on turn 1. Should be drivable, just a yellow flag in sector 1. The Alpine of Tim Ventink looking at the back of Vincenzo Torre coming out of Degner here. Through the hairpin, what will Ventink do? Not much you can do between here and Spoon, except hope you get a better exit. Keep it nice and outside. Hit that first apex and then the second here. Want to watch track limits. Not a problem for either driver that we're following. And into 130R. So through Casio, if Ventink gets a good exit here, should be an overtake for Ventink going into turn 1. He'll have DRS. Little slipstream, scoot to the outside. And that should be nice and easy for Ventink. No problem getting it to stick. P6 for him coming through the S's. And some action further back with the Alpine of Max Mulder. We're following the Williams of Juan Rivas. So battles everywhere on the grid. Only even Brito, after going off track in turn 1, now in the pit lane, finding himself left out. Dulys here yet again, about almost 2 seconds in front and 3 seconds behind him, so he's found himself with quite a bit of room on both ends of the car in this race today. And this will be the closest battle here. Of course I say that, but somehow Jensen Randall, the gap doesn't tell the whole story usually, but he's side by side with Nicolo Falzaresi. He has DRS in turn 1, and he'll regain the race lead. So we are finding ourselves in a position where you may want to be in P2 on the penultimate lap just to get that DRS through the straight, and then you can really make it hard for anyone to overtake for the rest of a lap. So Jensen Randall and quite a bit of cars off track. We're only able to see flashes. The Haas and Sauber of the two Spanish drivers, Noah Razo Abia and Enrique Perez. So I believe even Brito's going to be too far behind to really get a good look at what happened. But Brito will be able to close that gap after going off track in turn 1 and making a pit stop. He found himself quite a bit behind the rest of the pack. He'll be able to close it here. He had just stopped for softs. It would be essentially a free pit stop for Brito if he wanted to make a change, but I'm not sure if he's going to want to. Meanwhile, with about 10 laps to go, we'll see what race leader Jensen Randall does as he comes out of Casio. Will he go into the pit lane for new tires? I think he has to, and he will. So everyone has met the tire requirements. Everyone's run on 2 compounds. So from here, it's just how far do you think you can take each compound? Randall, Falzaresi, and David Rod going with the softs. They have been the 3 at the top of the grid. Dulys, George Wilkes wanting to play it a little bit safer, going with the mediums, hoping that as the race winds down, they'll have the grip the cars around them won't have. And there you can see it. Only Robin Hertzschadhagen going to the hard compound. Max Mulder opting not to pit. So Max Mulder, currently your race leader. He's on 9 lap-old hard compound tires. And he's got just about the worst combination someone can have behind them. That's Jensen Randall on fresh softs with a safety car restart looming. So about as scary as it gets in your rearview mirror for current race leader Max Mulder. Same as always, Max saying, "I will win today." on lap 18. All he's got to do is maintain this position, and he can do it. But it is not quite as easy as it sounds. I'll be curious to see if Max is going to make a tire change. If anyone has the gumption to stay out there and see what happens, it would be him. Even trying to warm them up is Max. Although with even Brito still finding his way in turn 12, we'll have another lap of the safety car. Take a look at the fastest lap currently to Jensen Randall. Pretty much a 1:30 flat. Sandro Dulis, you see they're kind of the outlier among the top 7 cars. Excluding Max Mulder, the only driver with a 1:31 as his fastest lap. It's been an interesting race from Sandro Dulis. He's been steady in that P4, P3 position, but he hasn't shown the pace of the cars in front, and sometimes not even the cars behind him. So it feels like a race being tightly managed by Dulis. And even now on the medium compound, he will almost necessarily not have the pace of Jensen Randall, Nicola Falzaresi, David Rod in front of him, or Tim Bentinck behind him. See positions lost and gained over the race. Koivuniemi did have an incident as he was kind of battling with, I think it was Sandro Dulis and George Wilkes. Found himself off track. Lost quite a few positions. And with Koivuniemi in P12 and Nicolo Falzaresi currently P3, certainly seems as though Nico is going to lock in a second place finish in the Drivers' Championship with about 1.5 races to go. Interlagos next week, the Brazilian Grand Prix. But still today, it is the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. Max Mulder warming the tires up. He's going to restart the grid. And we saw Nicolo Falzaresi restart as he came out of Casio into that last turn. Nice shot here of the Casio chicane. On board with Max Mulder. When will he restart? There it is. We'll see if Jensen Randall is going to have the fantastic restart he had last time. Not quite as effective, but he's got the slipstream and tire advantage. Should be an easy overtake, but Max Mulder will not make it easy. They don't want to lock the wheels. If you're Jensen Randall, you're oh, in contact. Well, contact between Jensen Randall and Max Mulder, and then Max kind of causing Nicolo Falzaresi to take some evasive action. That's only going to give Jensen Randall even more of a gap. David Rod able to get through somewhat unscathed, but Falzaresi definitely the one who took the worst of it there. So a good overtake for Jensen Randall, a little bit of contact, and then Max Mulder after the contact, just kind of slowly moving in front of Nicolo Falzaresi. Max still finding himself in P4, but Sandro Dulis getting the overtake done. Not sure if Max Mulder had took any damage from the contact or if it's just the old tires as he goes sideways and he takes the Red Bull of George Wilkes with him. Almost certainly another, yeah, of course, another safety car. Coming out of Spoon, you see the cars in front. Juan Rivas also taking damage. And just like that, 3 cars no longer in this race. Well, most of the drivers had pitted during the last safety car. Even Brito Tim Venting will pit now. As will Jesper Limpinen and Ice, maybe Vincenzo Torre. No, Vincenzo will stay out. Not sure if anyone took any damage from that aside from the cars who will not be racing any further. But Max Mulder, a pretty squirrely restart. Some contact with Jensen Randall. Through the S's, Jensen gets the overtake done. And then coming out of Spoon, not sure if it was just old tires catching a little bit too much curb, maybe even grass on the exit of Spoon. Ends up going sideways, George Wilkes. Nothing George Wilkes can do. And Juan Rivas must have just been caught up in that. So it'll be another safety car restart looming. Jensen Randall will be the one to do it this time. We'll see if he kind of changes up the timing on the restart. I feel as though both Falzaresi and Mulder kind of just went for the restart as soon as they could. Coming out of the Casio triangle, right into turn 18, just flooring it. So as it currently stands, everybody but one driver will finish in the points. A great race from George Wilkes. We'd seen him battling with Sandro Dulis, battling with Alexei Koivuniemi, who maybe by dint of being in some incidents earlier in the race, Koivuniemi back up into P6. So if you're going to get caught up in something, I guess it benefits you to be caught up in the first incident. You see 1, 2, 3, and 4, Randall, Rod, Falzaresi, Dulis, all keeping it nice and clean, and Dion Stahl up into P5. So Dion Stahl, we haven't checked in with much today. Keeping it clean as he always does. The beneficiary of what I believe is the 3rd safety car. Dion Stahl looking to finish with some nice points. Both Ferrari drivers still in the race. Both Astons still in the race. Both Mercedes still in the race. Everyone caught up to the queue as we come around the Dugner curves. Safety car should be in this lap, which means we will have 5 laps of full speed racing. Or at least you hope so. Brito, Ventink, Limpinen, the only 3 to pit during this safety car. I think the Mercedes, both Mercedes of Torre and Brito with good opportunities to maybe get an overtake on Hertz-Stadthagen, who is on hard compound tires, which are already in their 2nd safety car of this stint. So those will not be up to temperature. Torre on soft slicks, Brito on fresh mediums. So there will be a grip advantage for those two. Will be a restart for Jensen Randall. Go on board with David Rod to get a sense of Jensen's restart and how David Rod reacts. Come around at Casio for the 22nd time today. And Jensen is racing again. Decent restart for David Rod, not so great for Nicolo Falzaresi. The 2 Ferraris trying to fend off Koivuniemi. just behind them. Koivuniemi is going to have a tire advantage on Sandro Dulis. But Sandro does have his teammate Dion Stahl between him and Koivuniemi. Still Alexi right on the rear wing of Dion Stahl. I think on merit we can say Koivuniemi typically has a few tenths per lap over Dion Stahl. But overtaking not easy here at Suzuka. Koivuniemi looking to go around the outside on the hairpin. Goes a little bit too wide. It looked good, but a little too late on the brakes. Koivuniemi still wants that position. Turn 12 into Spoon. He's going to have the racing line, but he does have to afford Dion Stahl space. But based on the line, yeah, Dion's only going to lose time if he fights that. You see the McLaren of Hertzschildhagen behind him, so I think Dion making the right move, allowing Alexi to go past on Spoon curve. Koivuniemi back up into P5. Still work to do to catch up to Sandro Dulis. No DRS on the safety car restart. Nicolo Falzaresi 5 tenths behind. Meanwhile, Jenson Randall 128.2. That would have put him pretty high up there even in qualifying. Dion Stahl maintaining that position in P6 after the overtake by Koivuniemi. Tim Ventink getting the overtake done on Robin Hertzschildhagen. Koivuniemi, a lot of work to do to catch up to Sandro Dulis. That's Dulis 2.6 seconds behind Nicolo Falzaresi. So Koivuniemi, I think best finish he's looking at here is a P4. Would need to get around Dulis as he looks into the hairpin here. Koivuniemi very aggressive in this stretch of track last lap to get around Dion Stahl. And we'll see what he can do coming out of Spoon. Looks like losing a little bit there to Sandro Dulis there. But still well within DRS range. Dulis pulling away on the straight ever so slightly. Through Casio, Koivuniemi only 4 tenths behind, DRS enabled. He maintains his position at 3 laps to go for Koivuniemi to try and get back up into P4. If Koivuniemi can find his way back up into P4, it is not a lock for Falzaresi to be P2 in the Drivers' Championship. So you never know. Koivuniemi still could find himself finishing second in the Drivers' Championship behind his teammate, Jenson Randall. But he'll need to get by Sandro Dulis here. You see Dion Stahl and Tim Ventink a couple seconds behind these two. A good job by Koivuniemi to get by Dion Stahl when he was able to. Come out of Spoon again. Both drivers using the curb nicely, maximizing the width of the track to get the best exit possible. And this time down the straight, it's Koivuniemi gaining a couple hundredths here and there. DRS enabled at the start of this lap, which means Koivuniemi will have DRS coming out of Casio. Lost a little bit of time through the chicane. But you see the wing open, slipstream in effect. I don't know that Koivuniemi's going to have it here. Even with DRS, really didn't gain any time. The penultimate lap, lap 26. Koivuniemi maybe waiting for the overtake to get it done as lap 26 becomes lap 27. Don't allow Sandro Dulis a chance to get you back when he has DRS. As the gap between Koivuniemi and Dion Stahl increases to 4 seconds. So this is really the big battle of the race. Jesper Limpinen just behind Even Brito, a few seconds behind these two, but big points on the line for P4. As the intervals ahead of these two increasing, looks like Jensen Randall will win the Japanese Grand Prix. He's coming around Cassio now. He's about to start lap 27. And we'll switch to him once we see what Koivuniemi can do with the DRS. The gap to Sandro has increased to 7/10 though. The DRS flashing for Koivuniemi. We'll go to Jensen Randall. He's coming around Dunlop now, finishing Sector 1 nearly 2 seconds ahead of David Rod. So a last to finish yet again for Jensen Randall. Koivuniemi coming out of Degner into the hairpin. Not sure he's going to have it, but a good recovery from Alexei Koivuniemi. Meanwhile, in P2, as always, a very solid race for David Rod. And Nicolo Falzaresi. He had the race lead. Two very good drivers in front of him. Jensen Randall is going to come around to 130R. He's going to come into the Casio triangle. He'll have done it again, last to first, no qualifying time. Able to get the race lead. He'll cross start finish in P1, further cementing a fantastic season. David Rod, what a race in P2 in the Red Bull. Nicolo Falzaresi, Sandro Dulis, Koivuniemi, rounding out your top 5. You see them back there. And then Ventink, Stahl, Jesper Limpinen, Even Brito, and Vincenzo Torre rounding out those in the points. And with that, it is pretty much a foregone conclusion. Nicolo Falzaresi will finish P2, the game awarding Jensen Randall Driver of the Day. Hard to disagree when he goes last to first. If you'd like to vote on the Driver of the Day yourself, the SRL_F1 Instagram account will allow you to do that. Personally, I'll give it to David Rod in P2. Nice clean race for him. But you can also look at a very solid drive for drivers like Koivuniemi and Dion Stahl. A little trouble early on, but able to bring it back for some nice points. And there you see the fastest lap also to Jensen Randall. The only other 128, David Rod in the Red Bull, 128.96. So 7/10 between Jensen and David Rod. That'll do it for round 22 of SRL Season 9. Jensen Randall yet again the last to first finish in play. Join us next week. It is the final round of Season 9, the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos. If Suzuka is my favorite track of the year, then Interlagos would be my second favorite. We'll see if Jensen can continue the streak. Otherwise, catch us on Instagram. Catch a replay, including onboards of the highlights of today's race Wednesday on this YouTube channel. Have a good week. We'll see you Saturday for the finale.